and welcome to this weekly BitShare presentation. All recordings produced by the Beyond Bitcoin Show are free to share. So please, feel free and email us to friends, family, and business colleagues. If you need more information about BitShares, then please visit the website at bitshares.org. Again, that's bitshares.org. We would like to say thank you for joining us, and please enjoy the show.
Today is Friday, December 12th. This is a Beyond Bitcoin Hangout with Bytemaster from the BitShares Super DAC. He joins us here with the community every week to answer community questions and to give updates on the project as a whole. We start out today with an update, and then we will go into community questions, and if we have the time, we will try to get one or two Reddit questions from the Beyond Bitcoin Show subreddit for those who cannot attend. With that said, if you'd like to start us off with the update, go ahead and begin, Bytemaster.
All right. So this week has been a good week, all things considered. One of the biggest issues we're facing right now is a high priority upgrade to the network to resolve a potential security vulnerability. As far as we know, no one has exploited the vulnerability. We put out a release last night for delegates only to upgrade. It wasn't intended to create a hard fork. The end result was that the delegates ended up on a different fork. It had an unintentional fork in the code. Delegates ended up on a separate chain than most of the users. So one of the things we've asked delegates to do just before this hangout was to rejoin the users on the previous version of the code, 04.24. So there's going to be a section of time during which there was low delegate participation, but all transactions produced by users were included in both chains. And so there should be no double spends or otherwise, just lower delegate participation. That was my alarm. So the delegates ended up going off in their own little world. A lot of them did. But fortunately, many of them also stayed behind to support the old users. So we're just having everyone rejoin, get back on the same page, and then we'll be releasing a version that won't fork here later today.
Can 0.4.25 user join the network with the 0.4.24 delegates?
Users and delegates should all be using the previous version. And if there are problems downgrading the client, if you've already upgraded to the pre-release client, 225 was a pre-release, and for delegates only. So if you have to downgrade and you experience any problems doing so, you could wait a day. By the next 8 hours or so, we should have a 2.6 release out that should avoid the hard fork issues that 25 produced and be an upgrade from where you're at. We do not believe anyone lost any money. This is the moral equivalent of Bitcoin difficulty being high and having long intervals between blocks. So it's just slower network performance, but no one should lose money as a result of what we've done. So the nature of what we're doing is the reason why we tried to implement a fix was to prevent a potential double spend attack. An attack that hasn't happened that would require custom code to actually see happen. And so we were trying to put in a preventative measure against such a thing. But that's where we are.
So this isn't as bad as everybody was thinking it might be, essentially.
It's not the end of the world. The consensus model is extremely robust and can recover from just about anything. The worst case scenario is that the majority network has slower block production rate, but no one's at risk of losing their funds.
Even if you're on the majority fork as a user.
If you're on the majority or the minority fork, all transactions have been applied to both chains, assuming they were valid on both chains. So it should produce the exact same result at the end of the day.
Okay, but that was something you had to do manually, right? Or was that automatic?
What do you mean?
Like applying all transactions on both forks to the one that is the relevant one in the end.
Everything's automatic. All transactions have already been applied to both chains because all transactions are broadcast to delegates on both versions, and the delegates that stayed on 4.24 have included all transactions that have been broadcast on the network by users who should have still been on 4.24. So the transactions are also on the 4.25 chain. The 4.25 chain had a fix to prevent duplicate transactions. The fix was set to go into effect in just a few hours from now, but there was a bug in the code that wasn't checking for duplicate transactions up until the fix. It wasn't using the old or the new way of checking for duplicate transactions. So that's why the delegates ended up forking, because they allowed duplicate transactions to be applied that the old clients didn't recognize. So that's why we're having everyone go to the 4.24 fork and produce blocks on that chain, because there's some issues with some transactions being applied doubly.
I heard that Vikram is working on a hot fix of some sort.
Yes. So right now our hot fix is everyone just goes back to 4.24. 4.24 is stable and is being used for a few weeks now. So that should get everyone back on 100% or high delegate production. We'll have a hot fix that does the upgrade gracefully like we had intended to do. It would be for delegates only. And what we'll probably do is phase it in more gradually, just to make sure that there are no issues. But this is why we need BitShares, because we had a system that was working in all of our tests, but the bug was in the upgrade code, if you will.
Do you have any idea when BitShares is coming out?
As soon as we can. So Vikram just posted. So I just want to repeat, all funds are still secure. All transactions have been applied to both networks, and users will continue to see a consistent state throughout, those who stayed on non-pre-release versions. This is a delegate-only issue. The only side effect of this issue is that the delegates will not get paid for the duration of a couple hours that they had upgraded before they downgraded. So some delegates won't get paid.
So do you want to go right back to the urgent issue here to work, or do you want to give us a little update about how California went?
I'll go ahead and tell you guys how California went. Vikram and Notestein and Toast are actively. So I apologize. Wi-Fi at a hotel, slightly less predictable than my normal connection. All right, so this has been a relatively productive week here in California. We have met with all kinds of election officials, people in the space, very prominent people in the California government. We got great feedback from them about our voting system. The demo went smoothly. It was a proof of concept, and we will be rolling out a voting demo for the general public on the BitShares network within first quarter of next year. So I think we raised a lot of awareness. I've got to tell a lot of people outside the Bitcoin space all about the benefits of blockchains and cryptocurrencies, and really pitch BitShares. A lot of interest in BitShares outside the normal Bitcoin conference circle. So that was all very positive.
So out of curiosity, I think we generally know what the worst case scenario with this would be, which would be pretty much no bytes in the long run. But what do you see? Have you guys thought about what the best case scenario would be and the benefits that BitShares would gain from it?
From the feedback we heard, it looks like it's definitely a possibility that our identity verification and management process can be used to allow people to sign into the polling places. They're looking for a replacement for wet signatures when you show up to vote. And if they can sign in with a public key, private key on their phone, that as an option, that's something that that they see as viable and potentially could be adopted in the shorter term, get our foot in the door as being part of the election process, a part of the ID verification process. And then that lays the groundwork for future of actually counting the votes using our system for doing the voting directly. There are challenges with states like California where everything has to be a paper ballot. If you use a machine, it has to print out a paper ballot, and then you just put it into another machine which counts it. It's been, the politics and stuff is more than I like to deal with. I prefer to do things outside the government, and that's what we're intent on doing. We're going directly to the people, providing them with a voting solution. If you think about where does voting have its place in a libertarian society, it's not for the purpose of decision making. It's not for the purpose of using force against other people. It's for the purpose of knowing what other people think. Each and every day, most people, I guess probably all people, make decisions based upon what they think other people think. And if you can corrupt that, if you can lie to people about what other people think, then you can control behavior. You can do all kinds of things. So what elections do and what scientific polls, the media does, is they lie to people about what other people think. They manipulate people into thinking other people have opinions that are the same as the elite or same as whoever has an agenda. When in reality, I think many people actually think very differently than what other people think, and more similarly than you would expect. But we don't have a way to find out in a trustless way what everyone really does think. And that we're creating what I call a way to honestly, trustlessly measure the aggregate opinion. So we can make decisions off of honest data rather than off of polls or, hearsay, or, you have some story on the news about one person thinks this way. Everyone has the opinion that guns are evil. The news is always telling us that everyone's anti-gun, but maybe in reality it's only 1% of the people are anti-gun, and we're just being presented that. We don't know because we don't have a honest way of determining that. So most of us go along with the government that exists because we all think that everyone else is okay with the election result.
So it's a false sense of legitimacy.
Right. We go along because we think everyone else is okay going along, and we don't have an honest way of assessing our peers. And so with a transparent polling system that's non-binding, it still has tremendous value to those who recognize the importance of making sure that their voice is honestly and accurately aggregated into the aggregate opinion without any manipulation, and that it can be done so privately so that you don't have to worry about being shamed by your peers for expressing an opinion that you may have. What you'll notice is that many times people will publicly say one thing because that's what everyone else says, and then privately think something differently. And that reinforces the concept that, hey, everyone thinks this way, because in public, everyone does think that way, even though in private, they don't. If you had a provably fair system for assessing the public that you can trust without having to trust any individual or organization, you can start to see some changes in society. People can start to have confidence, and as people start to have confidence, it's like the V for Vendetta. Everyone puts on the mask, and they're private, and they come out there, and they just walk right past the jackboot thugs.
Minus the explosions, though, correct?
Yeah, no explosions. Everything I stand for is nonviolent and voluntary. So people gain confidence when they know other people stand with them, but it's very hard to find out who stands with you because you can't publicly say so, and the account can't be honest. In the minority position, find out they're not so alone. That emboldens them to make change, and then change happens faster. We basically need to take back our voice, because right now what happens is the media and the voting systems steal our voice and tell other people that we think something differently than we do. And they benefit and we lose.
What implications do you think something like this would have on the perception of terrorism, for instance? Because I've read statistics that you're more likely to die by falling in the shower or getting struck by lightning than to be killed in a terrorist event. So I'm kind of curious where you think that this type of stuff what the implications would be for that whole narrative.
Well, you'll find out what people really think. Are people really afraid? And do people want to spend money on it? Do people really want to go to war? You'll see very different results. Now, the challenge we have is that initially it's only going to represent the aggregate opinion of the early adopters, right? So it'll be good for assessing the mood and view of proof of work versus proof of stake, and the differences of opinion on different libertarian or positions, because our user community is more out there on the crypto anarchy side than the more traditional mainline side. So it's going to be skewed until we have a broad user base. But whatever user community you're in, the broader it is, the more inclusive you can be, the more confident you can be that that's a representative thing. You also know how many we are, right? How many people are actually out there in the Bitcoin space? We have guesstimates, but now we can actually find out how many people have been certified as unique individuals and where they're located. So it will definitely give us a metric by which we can measure growth that's independent of market cap. It gives us a product that we can sell to people that gets them involved in our community without having to sell them on the value of cryptocurrency. We just have to sell them on the value of having a voice. That's much easier, much less threatening.
And did you think about cooperating with a polling company? Because what those companies do is they select a few members of each or of several groups of people, so that the whole set of people represent or are meant to represent the entire population, for example, of the United States. So if you would, you could cooperate with them, with their ability to do this, and you could do the back end, what you do with vote.
Well, if we have the back end, the challenge with polling companies is how do they select their users, and what users voluntarily have the time to be polled, right? Someone calls me for a poll, I hang up. I'm not included in that set of users, so it's already skewed by including everyone like me. So why should I care about the result of their poll if I'm not willing to participate in their poll? So people always will tend to question the scientific polls because they don't know what kind of bias there is. You don't have, it's just a sample. You don't know pure numbers. The polling companies have a different business model. We are going to kind of be a polling company. It's more like a petition company. So if you want to petition for change, rather than going to whitehouse.gov and filing a petition there, you should file your petition in our system and get counted here, because we'll have stronger considerations, stronger validation. And the one thing we're going to try to get people to do is petition to change the voting system. And that's something that everyone can get behind.
So you're not aiming for having a result that is representable, or that is actually representing what the majority of the people of the United States thinks. Because if you don't do this kind of selecting people, or like selecting people by hand, then with a system where just everyone can come in, you would need a very, very high percentage of all the people, like maybe 80% of everyone, or even higher, to have a representative or have a result that aims at least at being representative of everyone.
You can use our data set to do a provably random sample of people's opinions that have been expressed. Our system is going to be inherently limited to our user base, so it's really only aggregating the opinion of our user base, and then only those who participate on providing an opinion on a particular issue. So any results derived from data in our system is going to be biased toward users of our system, and that's going to be how it is in the early days. So it's going to be useful for us to assess things like, do you like this marketing campaign? Or are you a verified user? If so, then you don't have to do a CAPTCHA. There's lots of things like that. If you want to have things like, what is the best crypto coin? Okay, use our system, not Facebook and Twitter and other systems that can be easily gamed. Our stuff's mainly going to apply to our space, assessing the opinion of our community. And then we just have to grow our community to include more and more people. Once our community includes all people, then it's very easy to have an algorithmic random sampling of the opinion of all users. So, but it's still going to be slightly biased by the users that chose to provide an opinion on an issue.
Crypto Prometheus asks a pretty good question here. He's asking, theoretically, can governments just create a bunch of dummy accounts that would seem legitimate, but then they could use that and essentially be the only ones who could perform Sybil attacks on the network to skew voting?
Depends on what the identity verifiers do. If the identity verifiers maintain a database of pictures like they should, and use face recognition software to cross-reference names and pictures, then it doesn't matter how many social security numbers they have, you've got another level of security. If they start to use the social graph of who knows who and have everyone tied to their parent, all right, so you're uniquely identified by who you are and who your parent is, then you can have very high confidence that no one is able to manufacture a lot of data. So you have this social graph that can be used to protect things. So it's really just a matter of to what extent ID verifiers want to go. The more robust their system, the more trusted they are. And there's not just one verifier, there's many. So you'd have to say, okay, the government says you're unique, but prove it to some private company that you're unique, and then prove it to someone else that you're unique. And they'd all have to agree. And so they shouldn't rely just on SSN. Oh, you've got an SSN. Okay, good. That's not good enough for our system.
What about things like we often see people who are, for instance, passed away. They are legitimate people. They have existed. They have those connections, and they just have, they don't have a vote. They've got a vote that somebody can steal, essentially. And another question, I guess, to add to that would be, are these all going to be centralized services that are verifying it?
The verifiers are centralized entities, but it's kind of like Bitcoin miners. You have many different verifiers out there that are independent of each other, and you take the intersection of them. Now, someone asked, won't this disenfranchise people who don't have all the qualifying documents? Everyone can express an opinion. Every opinion is going to be weighted based upon how legitimate or how much verification went into it. So you can look at the results and just slide a slider. I want to only include this ID verifier, or I want to include the intersection of these, or I want to say this or this one, or I was going to say I want to say anyone. Now, what's the all opinions? And you can look at the differences based upon how you change the set of qualified users. We're separating out the interpretation of the opinion from the casting of the opinion. So we don't say, well, you can't vote unless you have X, Y, and Z. You can express an opinion as an anonymous public key. Not many people are going to consider that worth anything because it's easily spammed. But there's lots of different metrics by which you can measure the opinion, and people will probably fight and disagree about what the best metric is, but at least you're trying to identify the honest set of users by some metric, and no one's going to, people will be able to quantitatively, qualitatively evaluate the probability of simple attacks.
Does anybody else have any questions regarding this?
So can someone fill me in on BTC38 accepting bitCNY 1-to-1?
Yes, the BTC38 is working with a platform called Trade BTS, and then Trade BTS is the gateway to accept fiat and crypto. So BTC38 is working with that platform, but BTC38 won't hold bitCNY.
Right. My understanding was that they give you real CNY when you send them bitCNY.
Yes.
I don't understand the economics of what they're doing. I think it's great. They're giving people free money. So I'm really curious about what the business model is of the intermediary that's performing that function for them. They
give you extra for deposit, but they also take extra for withdrawal.
So the intermediary is just doing 1-to-1. So if they're honoring it 1-to-1, that must mean that they've got a business model to make money on it somewhere else.
So let me understand this straight. I'm hearing that you send 1,000 bitCNY and they give you 1,005 CNY as per Speedy. However, that would only be if you as long as you keep your funds in their exchange. But when upon withdrawal, you have to pay a certain amount of that out as like a withdrawal fee. Is that?
Yes.
So they could make money off of the withdrawals and benefit from having the incentive to have people keep their money in the exchange, which would provide more liquidity and greater solvency on their side.
Yes, it's just a numbers game,
Yeah, it seems like it's a zero-sum game. It's kind of some kind of gimmick. But at the end of the day, someone is honoring bitCNY 1-to-1, and they've got a business model that allows them to receive a bitCNY, send out a CNY, which means that they now have to sell that bitCNY for at least one CNY or more of value in order to make a profit. I suppose if there's high liquidity and you can take advantage of people periodically paying above the price feed, there's a lot of things you could do. I'm just very curious.
So upon first glance, you're questioning how this would be possible, is what I'm gathering.
I'm glad it's going on. I think that it's something that would easily happen when the system is more mature. If someone's willing to provide a lot of liquidity, then it's perfectly fine to do now. So the way I interpret it is someone's providing a lot of liquidity. The reason they're probably willing to provide a lot of liquidity today is because it helps BitShares out tremendously. If they have a large stake, they make their money on BitShares rising in value. And so it's kind of a loss leader on any slight inefficiencies. But there's also opportunity to make money. You just have to have very good trading bots.
Could it also have something to do with wanting to be the first mover in this space, seeing a place where the opportunity cost for passing it up is too high to them?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things going on here. So it's perfectly legitimate. Someone's willing to do it. It is worth about a CNY. They obviously implemented a daily limit on the amount, so that's reasonable. So all things considered, it looks like a very good, robust option, and I'm very, very excited for it, because what this does more than anything is make bitCNY equivalent to CNY on the BitShares network, which means that you can now trade bitCNY against BitUSD and against all the other systems, and we start to have real trade occurring directly on the network rather than occurring off network, which means that BitShares has become a trust-free exchange for CNY.
That's huge. It hit me today when I saw it too. I mean, you realize that it's big, but I'm kind of where Lestagil is with how big.
This is the first step of what's going to come across the board for everything from CNY to dollars to gold and silver. As this type of thing starts to happen, you're going to see big growth. Someone asked what's going to do the market cap. After it was announced, it went up 15%. So people get it.
Yeah, it's definitely a milestone for us. BTS Wild Pig says, forum member at GULU launched a bitCNY to CNY gateway, allowing one-on-one exchanges 2 weeks ago with no fees at this moment. Every day BTC 38 sends bitCNY via blockchain to Gulu, who then sends back BTC 38 the CNY via banks. Probably BTC 38 won't hold any bitCNY unless they also want to launch a gateway.
Yeah, I think what I would recommend BTC 38 do is issue their own BTC 38 CNY on the BitShares network. That way they don't have to create additional liabilities on their books other than just tracking the fiat that they're already tracking.
Does anybody have any opinions or questions regarding this or anything else?
The network has been down all day. We can't even find a single developer who's not sleeping, Do you think anything could do to prevent that from happening again? Like release the new updates on a daytime.
Yeah, so we have a challenge that doesn't matter what time of day we release an upgrade, someone's sleeping somewhere. But yes, I do. We generally try to launch updates in the morning during the middle of the work week so that we are available in case there are any issues. We are trying to rush out a fix for a potential vulnerability, and the fix wasn't supposed to have significant impact on things. It wasn't even supposed to hard fork, but that's how things go. It even happens periodically to the Bitcoin developers. Yeah, we're definitely looking at things like DevShares to help us prevent this in the future. And we do try to do this when people are around. It's been unfortunate that this stuff happened while I was in California, so I wasn't able to participate in the review process prior to release of the fix. But I think we're going to have this all resolved by the end of the day. And I think delegates should be back to the previous version within an hour or two. And we'll be back to 100% delegate participation. on the main network. So small bump in the road. I don't think much harm was done.
I think in general, something that this might be helpful for you. The time that we've chosen for our Hangouts tends to be something that came around after a long time of us, changing the times around to maximize participation from the largest user bases. So maybe that would be a good gauge for release times.
Yes, the mumble time is great.
All right, we'll try to announce upgrades at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Now, Lil J890 says here, any detail on when we might see version 1.0? And from the history of it, I'll just go ahead and say that we tend to try not to ask Bytemaster for specifics on this stuff because it's very hard, and the history has shown that it's sometimes better to just get a guesstimate on things, or But Bytemaster, do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, we're trying to draw a line in the sand on things, but we have holidays and things coming up, so it makes it hard to estimate the deadlines. So it's really going to be based on when we can get the features complete that we want in 1.0. And the features that we're looking at for 1.0 include a very robust user-issued asset system with proposals for user-issued assets, with the ability for companies to manage permissions in a finer-grained manner than multi-sig alone. So we're trying to really look through the eyes of a gateway and make sure that version 1.0 can do everything a gateway needs, because the gateways are going to be the on and off ramps that make moving value into and out of our system easier. And they have a lot of compliance issues. They have a lot of security issues that they need to be confident in. And we want to make sure that the blockchain supports what they need to do. So that's one thing that's going to be in version 1.0. The other thing that's coming for 1.0 is the object graph. Object graph will allow people to publish arbitrary data and links between data and update that data with a multi-sig based permission scheme. That object graph is the foundation of voting, and it's the foundation of identity management on the BitShares blockchain. It's a completely generic data structure, so it can actually be used for all kinds of information that needs to be timestamped or referenced in an authoritative, decentralized manner. That's one of the major features is object graph. That's almost complete. Toast is the one that's been implementing that. It's based loosely on the key graph that he was working on before. We are working on the concept of sites or organizations. So we have users in our system, but organizations, and such as businesses and gateways and any group of people, they need an identity that's transferable, that is multi-user, and is of high quality. These are higher priced identities that are transferable, bid at auctions, kind of like the domain system that we were talking about before. We've broadened the concept to be more of an organization or site or brand concept rather than just a domain system. And all that's going to tie into the object graph as well. So we want that for version 1.0. The only other thing that we are contemplating for version 1.0 is whether or not we implement auctions and potentially a bond market. Those are the two things that we'll decide based upon, after we get everything else done, do we delay it a week or two to implement the feature into the blockchain, or do we launch 1.0? So that's where we are.
Speedy's asking about, will it be coming in 1.0 or even in the future to allow shorting of BitUSD as collateral instead of BTS?
I don't think so. at least not for version 1.0. I think the market rules are already complicated enough. The benefits of the system are mostly there, with being able to use BTS as collateral. Having a double layered set of collateral is propagating risks deeper into the network. So I do not expect to do that in the short term. The code is mostly there in the blockchain right now, actually, to be able to support that kind of thing, but we haven't enabled it. So I think we want to keep the bit assets as simple as possible for version 1.0. Now, there will be a future 2.0 upgrade, or 1.1 or whatever, the next hard fork. It may exist at that point in time, but we don't want to, bit assets don't have a wide enough use. The collateral's not really liquid enough at this point in the game. So we're going to keep it really simple for now.
Does that answer the question for you, Speedy? Okay. This might be a small segue, but this is a good time to maybe get one of the Reddit questions in with regard to something that's similar to this. This is regarding cross. Have you guys has I3, and I know we know that I3 is no longer I3, so to speak. However, has the team quit on the consideration of cross-chain trading and things like that, or is this still something that would be possible in the future?
That's a feature for 1.0 as well.
Could you explain a little bit how that will be working, and will gateways come into it at all?
The escrow system is enough to support cross-chain trading. But yeah, in a previous version of this mumble, I went over in detail how it works. If you look up atomic cross-chain trading on the Bitcoin wiki, you'll have a high-level overview. But it basically involves one person creating a transaction to pay the other person if that other person reveals a secret. And they do that on one chain. The other person creates a transaction sending the value and reveals their secret on the other chain. So one person can't claim their funds without revealing the secret that allows the other person to claim the funds. So that's atomic in that sense. The operations for doing that are already in the code. We just haven't exposed it in the API.
So nothing's really changed on that front as far as the methods, and it's still up there as a priority for the future.
We're putting it in there because it's a relatively easy transaction structure to add. I don't think it's the way most users will go. I think most users will go with a gateway and a trusted third party because it's faster, more reliable. You don't have to directly negotiate with a single party. You've got a solid counterparty at all times, the gateway. So gateways are just more efficient all around than cross-chain trading, but the blockchain will support it for anyone who wants to try to do something between the chains.
So the two methods could essentially compete. Xiao Shen asks, does anyone confirm which wallet delegates should use? And yes, that has been confirmed to be 0.4.24.1.
Yeah, so if you upgraded and you're downgrading, you should go to 4.25 RC2. That's the prior release candidate before the official 4.25 release. And then the 4.24.1 is also a valid one to be on. But because we upgraded level DB, you'll have to re-download the blockchain if you go back to 4.24.1. Oh, actually, because we're using level DB for the wallet as well, you'll have to export and re-import your wallet. So the level DB upgrade is apparently the reason that you can't downgrade easily to 4.24.1 if you're on the Neo client. So 0.4.25 RC2 is the version that delegates are probably going to be running, but it's blockchain compatible with 4.24.1.
Can you post a detailed thread on the forum after this mumble session?
the details have already been posted. They're in the text chat. I'll post the link again. Overall, I want to commend the team for the rapid response to the issues that have been brought to our attention. Earlier, someone posted a post about transaction malleability with signatures based upon OpenSSL's weak validation rules. Same issue affected Bitcoin. We've addressed those issues in our code now as a result of it. So we would like to thank community members who have brought things to our attention. The team has worked very hard to get this fixed in a timely manner. Everything was going very smoothly except for one little bug on the upgrade patch. Anyway, the team's been working hard and they responded quickly, and I'm very proud of them and all the delegates out there who are patient and flexible and working with us to make all this happen. So it's a team effort. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work. We're really proving the point that the blockchain is about consensus more than anything else. It's about people.
Second that, obviously. If you don't mind, if no one else has anything to add to this, would you mind if we move to ask a couple subreddit questions and then we can end the hangout for this week? Or rather, we could potentially move on to maybe 10 minutes for HPMV to update everybody on the community.
I'm actually going to check out and go get some breakfast. I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, just as an update to everybody here, while you're all here, I would like to point everyone to a new link. When you log in here to the Mumble server, you'll see that we have some images with links provided to BitShares related DACs and also to Null Street, which is the growing home of the community marketing effort, as well as a BitShares based news bulletin and blog. And we also have Dota 2 link here for an upcoming tournament that we will start organizing whenever the play forums are really bustling. But I would like to direct you to the new link that we've posted regarding BitShares Play. This will direct you to the forums for BitShares Play, and I would urge you all to register there and become part of that community as well if you're interested in BitShares Play itself or being part of that community. And with that said, I will be trying to reach out to HPMV as well a little bit more to potentially have some community updates with respect to the marketing push that's been put together by the community. So with that said, does anybody have any questions or concerns? Or last Agile, the Dota 2 game is, I'll kind of explain here. Hackfisher has allotted a certain portion of the BitShares Play shares to be unlocked monthly for community-driven efforts and other advertising and community-building campaigns. And he has allotted 1 million play shares for a tournament, and we held a poll on the BitShares forums probably about a month ago, and where it started with a thread having people give games that were free to play, low barrier to entry, free to play games, and making sure that they were competitive, free to download. Those were the two stipulations. And then we compiled the ones that were available that met those criteria and had the community vote on them for a tournament. and we're going to have a tournament. And the way that the tournament will work is we will have people, what I'm going to ask people to do is I'm going to ask them to download the Dota 2 game, play it, and essentially I'm asking people to recruit teammates outside of BitShares Play and outside of the BitShares ecosystem and bring them on to potentially share in the winnings for being first, second, or third place in the tournament. And we'll have more details on that as we move forward. I will be working with Hackfisher and some of the people who he has behind the scenes to make this happen. But we're not going to be really housing this on the BitShares forums. It'll be on anything BitShares Play related will most likely be on the BitShares Play forums. I might provide updates here in the Mumble and on a website whenever we get a website up and running for us and for all of this stuff, for the updated content that we provide from the server. Does that answer your question? Okay. And for those of you who were not here earlier, I'm just going to inform you one last thing. I am talking with some people behind the scenes regarding some compliance issues with regard to user-issued assets. So if anybody is running something where they are considering the potential issuance of user-issued assets, please keep abreast with this and keep attending the Mumble server. We will probably be having a hangout with them at some point in time so they can give some basic guidelines. They do offer a service for those individuals who are wanting to take it to the next level and want to really create something like a really big business venture or something to that effect. But they obviously do cater to people who want to go that route as well. And with that said, thank you everybody for showing up. It is 12 o'clock Eastern, and the hangout has ended. So feel free to use this as your own. Of course, Speedy, no problem. If you guys ever want to have your own hangouts or do anything like that, feel free to use the service for that. It's here for everybody to, even if you just want to come in here and BS, or if you want to run a marketing campaign that's live, or if you want to trade together and teach each other how to trade, or run a wallet, or run a delegate, feel free to do any of this stuff. The server's here for you to use. So with that said, have a good one, everyone. And thank you for attending.